In a small town, there lived a milliner named Joe. Joe's shop was not much to look at, tucked between a bakery and a second-hand bookstore on the main street. The sign above the door simply read, "Hats." Joe believed in making hats that were practical. No fancy ribbons or extravagant designs, just good, sturdy hats that did their job. This approach had earned Joe a loyal customer base, though it rarely brought in anyone new. One day, a young woman named Ellie wandered into the shop. She was looking for something special, a hat that would make her stand out at the upcoming town festival. Joe listened patiently as Ellie described what she wanted, something with flair and color, something unique. Joe hesitated. Making such a hat would be a departure from the usual. But looking at Ellie's hopeful face, Joe decided to try. "Give me a couple of days," Joe said, and Ellie left the shop, excited. Joe worked hard on the hat, crafting it with care. It was different from anything Joe had made before, with a bright splash of color and a bold design. When Ellie came to pick it up, her eyes lit up. "It's perfect," she said, and she meant it. Ellie wore the hat to the festival, and it was indeed a hit. People asked her where she had gotten such a unique piece, and she proudly told them about Joe's shop. For the next few weeks, Joe's shop was busier than it had ever been, with people coming in asking for hats, just like Ellie's. This sudden change was overwhelming for Joe. The demand for unique, eye-catching hats was high, and it seemed like that was all anyone wanted anymore. Joe found less and less time to make the simple, practical hats that had been the shop's staple. Then, one day, Mr. Thomas, a longtime customer, came into the shop. He was looking for a simple hat, something to keep the sun out of his eyes while he worked in his garden. Joe realized, with a pang of guilt, that there were no such hats left in the shop. Everything had become too fancy, too focused on standing out. "I'm sorry," Joe told Mr. Thomas. "I've been so caught up in making these other hats that I've forgotten why I started making hats in the first place." Mr. Thomas smiled kindly. "It's easy to get carried away," he said. "But remember, it's the hat that serves the person, not the person who serves the hat." That night, Joe thought about Mr. Thomas's words. The next day, Joe started making practical hats again, alongside the more elaborate ones. The shop regained its balance, catering to both the Ellies and the Mr. Thomases of the town. The twist came when Joe realized that the success of the shop didn't lie in the type of hats made, but in the willingness to listen and adapt to the needs of the customers. Joe's shop became known not just for its unique hats or its practical ones, but for its ability to offer something for everyone. The moral of the story emerged quietly, like the first light of dawn after a long night. It wasn't about the hats at all, but about understanding and meeting the needs of those around us. Joe learned that change isn't about abandoning our principles but about expanding them to include new perspectives and needs. In doing so, we don't lose what we stand for, we enhance it, making our foundations stronger and more inclusive.